Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Lightdrop podcast, where it's just two friends talking creativity and beyond. And today we are three friends because we have a very special guest. Our guest today is someone who we've been so excited to speak with. I had the pleasure of meeting her once, and in the brief time that we spoke, what stood out to me about our guest today the most was the way in which she really brightens up a room. You know, like our guest today is the Chair of BFA Animation at School of Visual Arts. She's the co-lead of WIA's New York City chapter, as well as the chair of WIA's education program, and she does it all while being an independent artist across several different mediums. So super excited to have our guest on the show today. Without further ado, welcome to the pod, Hsiang Chin Moe.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jamel and Jeffrey, for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Really excited to be here. I didn't know I would brighten up any room, but hopefully I could do that today as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm gonna start off the first question today. I think that Jamil kind of mentioned a lot. You've done a lot of things. You're involved in a lot. So we want to know, what's your art origin story? How did you become who you are today? You know, we want to know the background.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start off by having a confession. I actually am not an animator. I run an animation program where I have over 400 students specializing in 2D animation, but I am not an animator. My background, trace it all the way back. I'm originally from Taiwan. Studying abroad is always like a dream of mine, and then just family arrangement, all sorts of thing, and then moved to United States for college, actually. So English, not my first language. If I count in numbers, it has to be in Chinese. Including my phone number, my social security, anything numbers are related, I had to do it in Chinese. But then when I went to college in Temple in Philadelphia, I actually was torn between biochemistry and filmmaking. My background's more in the science, and I chose the filmmaking more on the editing route. And clearly, my parents were a little bit not they weren't upset. They're just like, oh, okay, you do you. We'll figure it out. They're really open-minded. They don't really care what I want to do. They just want to make sure I'm doing whatever I want to do that I'm happy about. So in undergrad, I was focusing a lot more on just video editing, specifically for documentaries. And then I went to SVA for grad school and still had the goal of my own documentary that I wanted to make. But then my career, if you summarize it, how I got to where I am, is all the people that I met kind of make up what I do now. And so I didn't really get to decide what I want to do, to be honest. So in grad school, it was a 4-semester study. The second semester, I actually got approached by a faculty and say, hey, do you want to work part-time with me for something? I was like, cool, I don't know what that is. I will say yes. And I became a production assistant for motion capture. And this is too many moons ago. The system looked really outdated compared to now. But I had no 3D experience. I didn't really know anything about rigging. I didn't really know anything about systems in general. So I was just kind of got thrown in the fire and learn on the job. Then fast forward, I then shift to higher education to be in the on the admin side. I started from the admin assistant, like running the library, helping students with classes, and start getting my toes into like curriculum development. And then I was very fortunate in the first 6 years in higher education. I became admin assistant and became a director of operations. But then throughout that journey, this is where things got really interesting. That I started going to a lot of conferences and festivals, and animation adopted me in the way that all the people I met from all these places started giving me a lot of ideas and information and knowledge about how animation industry works. And at the end of the day, I think you will both agree it's all about people. It's all about networking and connections. And I feel like they all took me in, even though I have no idea what it is. I will go to a tech talk and see graph about the snowflakes of Frozen, how it's invisible, but there's a whole formula they came up with. And I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know what we're talking about. Sounds amazing. So then 2018 is when I applied for this position. 2019 is when I started a job being the chair for the animation department. And also the same year when I joined the board for WIA, overseeing the education program. So I'm not a cult lead for the New York City chapter anymore. I actually had 3 amazing cult leads. They're running the chapter. I'm more on the advisory side of it to kind of help them move things forward. So if you said, I always describe, I don't really know what I do, but if I have to put a label, I'm like intersection between animation and education. But really what I appreciate, what I enjoyed the most is making that connections of people that I'm meeting, people that I could help with, having that connections and making my world bigger and bigger by including so many other people. So I don't really have an art journey, but I do actually. I should say also this, that I am a filmmaker on my own. I can also admit that I haven't done anything about that on my own, just because the other things have been kind of consume my life a lot more. But I am still artist at heart. I still a storyteller. I'm helping my students to tell their stories, and sometimes it make me feel like I want to, that little part of me, like I want to do it on my own too. I'll get back to it. I promise.
No,
That's
that's great. We love that. I love that you said that so much of this is about people. I think after I'm more of a junior artist, just to give you a little bit of background. Yeah, I'm
mm,
definitely more of a junior artist, junior mid, I would say. I graduated in 2019,
mm,
and I was so nervous about what do I do now? Like, am I going to be able to figure out how to move forward? Um, because I felt like I graduated too late. But the
mm,
thing that kind of kept me motivated and going was the people, whether it was, like my wife encouraging me, Jamil talking to me constantly, just pouring into me, um, my friends. And that's what helped revitalize some of that spark that I had
yeah.
when I first started. So I really appreciate you saying that so much of this is about people, because Jamil and I talk about that constantly.
Yeah. And also sometimes I feel like it's not the people that you share the same passion. Sometimes meeting people with completely different views and have a disagreement with actually helps a lot and kind of motivate me. So in my career, there are definitely people have told me in my face, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to do what you're going to do for different parts of the stage of my life. And
Mhm.
I could have taken the route and feeling defeated, but in the I don't know, there's a little part of me, there's a lot of parts of me now, there's a little part of me, I always take that as a motivation that I'm going to prove you wrong.
Mhm.
So but I do think, having that network of people with the support system, it helps. But
Yeah.
sometimes when I tell students is I don't want them to fall into the comfort zone of only
Yeah.
hanging out with people that are alike. I want to make sure everyone's challenging themselves to experience something different, different topic, different discussion, and even having a debate. Oh, having a debate would be really great.
Mm, that's a good point.
Yeah, I've always said that, like, being a creative professional, being an artist and pursuing this kind of work, especially when you're a student, it's really easy to just by the nature of graduating, right? It's like you go through this whole process of, okay, at first I was in high school, and then I wanted to get to college, I did it, and then I wanted to, get good grades, and I graduated and I did it, and it's always this very distinct kind of destination that you're trying to reach. And so I feel like a lot of times when we graduate, especially as artists, we have our eyes on a particular job or place that we want to kind
Mhm.
of work at. And the thing about it is, it's not it's being a creative professional, being an artist, isn't like a destination that you can kind of reach and then finally say, oh, I did it, like I made it. right? It's like you said, it's really like a constant kind of uprooting of your comfort level and your
Yeah.
comfort zone. And the best way to do that is to talk to, just to be talking to people,
Mhm.
communicating, back and forth, experiencing different views, and everything like that. So I love that you said that. And I know, I'm really curious to like get your thoughts on interacting with people in that way, because you you travel all the time, all over the place, and you're speaking with students in that way. And what are some of the things that you've seen, from the standpoint of being in like a almost a mentorship kind
Mhm.
of position, that you've kind of adopted, um, and in the way that you are speaking with so many students, often in passing, but being able to have that kind of
Mhm.
impact on them. Like, what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that, and like how that works?
I would say I've done up until now, I've done so many panels and presentations, but I also have to acknowledge that I also started by not having any experience and freaking out, making notes on my notebook for every single question I have to ask, So we all started off somewhere, and I think that's what one thing I have to remind myself constantly is everyone I interact with, they might present certain way with the title, but they also are not necessarily introverts. There's definitely the insecurity side of it. So I think my point is to make sure people feel comfortable with the conversation. And I think this question comes up all the time is how do we network, right? This quote unquote networking is very, I mean, we talk about people making connection and how does it important, not just in the industry, just in life in general, right? But I think when people are like, oh, I don't know how to make friends, I don't know how to network, I always feel like, but again, I have to say, I started from zero to where I'm right now. In the beginning, I was definitely really shy. I'll go to a conference, I'll go to a festival. I was like, oh, no, should I just start a conversation? What if they don't like me? What if we don't have anything in common? But then I realized everyone has the same fear, to be honest. Even someone who has so many experiences, they will still have a little bit of doubt. So I think is it finding that common ground of we're not networking because the term networking sounds very official, very much like this is what I do. Can you help me? Or this is what you do. Can I have it? It's like a transaction almost. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I always feel like networking is something for me is just as simple as making a friend. I actually love talking to strangers because there's no baggage, right? I mean, not that you're gonna make them like I'm from, Fiji. Actually, once I faked the identity, I don't know why my friend was like dared me. It was like, what if we walk up to someone, people ask me where we're from? We're from Fiji. I was like, I don't even know where Fiji is, but sounds great. But I think it's just more so of meeting someone and just having a conversation. It could be animation related, it could be visual effects related, or it could just be something else,
Mhm.
right? So I think it's just really dumb it down to just having a conversation. And also, just like in life, you're not going to be friends with everyone. Some people just have a conversation, 2 or 3 sentences, you're like, okay, cool, you leave, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong about it. But I think it's just being genuine about being curious of what other people are. The truth is people love talking about themselves, so thank you for letting me talk about myself. But mostly, a lot of students or emerging talent would be like, I don't know what to talk about. And then what they do is they walk up to someone with a business card, it's like, this is my business card. Can you check out my work? But then you already set the tone of you want something, right? But you just walk up to someone and have a conversation and see where the conversation goes. Um, and I think that's where I come in as a mentor. So I have a lot of people reach out to me for advice for different levels of industry. Actually, there are definitely people like emerging talent. They're trying to figure out how to break in the industry. There are also people that are shifting their career. There are also people in the leadership level and trying to figure out what they are pivoting their life decisions, and and then all sorts of different things.
Mhm.
But I always I'm always being really harshly honest with people, just because I feel like I don't want to sugarcoat stuff. So, for example, I have someone recently hop on a call with me. Um, this person was very anxious about what they want to do and what they want to do, what they are doing now versus what they want to do. The whole conversation, I can tell this person was nervous. And every question I asked, this person was very throwing a lot of buts and doubts. And I was like, you know what? We're not here to talk about what you do anymore. I'm here to help you to build the confidence. So, but again, this conversation, obviously, this person came to me for advice. So I can actually break it down into I'm here to help you. I'm not here to destroy your egos or look down on your creativity. Is nothing about that. I see every single human being is like a beautiful person. We might share some passion about certain titles of shows and whatever, but we're here to help each other. And then so during this conversation, I was very honest with this person, like, hey, I'm gonna stop you right here. Let's take 5 steps back and just like be a human being. And I want you to be confident. And then so that 1 hour phone call end up being like a coaching session because I want everyone to get something out of it. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, you're doing great.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's not helpful. Even Jamel, when we were meeting at that one event, a lot of students walk up to me with their portfolio to the point I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to tell you exactly what's going on. I'm not going to be like, your work is amazing. Yes, they are, but there's definitely room for improvement. And I think I choose in that position to be honest with people. So I am here to help, but also be kind, right? There's a difference between being nice and being kind. I want to be kind. Nice is more like you're great, but kind is more like you're good, but this is what you could do to move forward. So but yeah, mentoring is something that I do. I find myself doing a lot, but I also have to say I have a lot of mentors of my own. I can go up and ask a question about my career, my personal life, or anything that I do, or my cats. You know.
Yeah. I was gonna follow up with that because you mentioned that there are sometimes students will present their work to you and they're a little bit shy. Do you think that a strong portfolio but lower confidence is still enough to get through the industry? Do you think confidence is the thing that like will take your work further, even if you're not technically like the best?
Mm,
Because Jamil and have spoken about that in a previous episode about how um, sometimes presenting your work is more important than the actual ability because people can understand what you're trying to convey. But yeah, my question is just that. Do you think that someone has amazing work, obviously, but doesn't feel too confident about it, is still going to be all right in their work, or
mhm.
do you think they might
Yeah.
have challenges?
So if the standard is like the work is great, I feel like whether or not you're confident, it's more so how you present yourself. Nowadays, a lot of the work are presented without the person, right? You have your portfolio, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, whatever platform that you use to present yourself. So, but by doing so, being confident of presenting your work, that's I think should be the minimum because again, you're not putting yourself like in front of people, right? So I feel like that's the first step of being confident of presenting yourself professionally and artistically. I think that's really the bare minimum. But then if you're taking another step into um, after you present yourself, sorry, after work is presented without you being in the room, and now you're having a conversation either virtually in real life and showing that confidence, I feel like that moment is not as important. It is important to present yourself professionally, but being confident, I would say, is important in the way, at least having a decent conversation because you don't want to also present yourselves like I already know everything I'm doing, right? That's too confident. We don't want that either. Is having that finding that neutral tone of how you want people to perceive you, right? So But I think if you're completely not confident of yourself, and people ask like, "Oh, what about this project? How did you do it? How did you come with an idea?" I think it's not about confidence. It's more so the communication skills. If you can't articulate enough about how you create, then that leads to the question is, can you communicate when you're on the job?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think confidence is more like, I feel like that's the first line if you can or cannot do it. But I would say bare minimum, like just be confident as who you are as a human being. And then about your work, it's more about communication. So I do think at the end of the day, communication skill is way more important than your skills.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like, this is me personally, I feel like your skills in terms of animation or any skills that's knowledge based, you can always learn. And I didn't know anything about mocap. Literally, I was like trying to figure out TCP/IP, all of that stuff. Um, I can
What?
I can learn on the job. I can ask people for help. I can find a mentor. But communication, it takes practice, and you need to be motivated and brave enough to do it to start. But once you start doing it, having enough practices, it should come easy. But on the other side, back to being, about this network and people, is I actually think a lot of emerging talent, when they're not confident, I see this a lot, which is it's really cute. I love it. Is they don't know what to do in one on one, but they will bring a friend of theirs to come and talk to professionals, so they don't feel like they're alone. And absolutely, that's great. So if you feel like I am good at what I do, but I'm still needing that little bit of confidence boost, get a friend to help out, especially in real life. Virtually might be a little bit difficult, but like, having whatever that is, it could be a friend, it could be something that it could help you. I think that having that little bit of boost will help out. So, but do you come across?
Yeah, I've
No, go ahead.
noticed that too. I think you know what I think the most is like, and and you're in a really unique position with your perspective, because it's like, um it's cool because it's
Mhm,
your job to speak with people about how to get a job, but in doing so, you're able to see how there's really not much
mhm,
separation, right? It's like like you mentioned, it was like quote unquote your job to speak with that student that reached out to you, but then amidst that, you were like, okay, wait a minute, we're talking about work and stuff here, your portfolio, but actually, I can see that we need to just talk about your life and your skills. And I think especially artists who tend to be on the introverted
mhm,
side, I think there's almost this attachment to that, to identifying as that. But the fact of the matter is, these communication skills are no different than your skills in Photoshop and your skills in Maya, and and you can still be an introvert, but practice how to
mhm,
communicate. Right? It's. I think I've noticed that about myself, is that I'm definitely an introvert, but um, I always felt like I could improve the way my voice was. It's like I wasn't comfortable using my voice. It's not that I was like shy,
mhm,
or timid. It was just that literally my voice, using it, was
mhm,
so foreign, and it was uncomfortable. And so the only way to get out of that is to kind of practice, and you can identify very tangible things to improve on. Like, oh, I speak really low. I mumble a lot. Like, let me just try and practice that, right, and speak louder. And so, yeah, I think that that's a really big kind of distinction that's kind of hard to see when you're a more junior artist
yeah.
getting into things. Is um, it's really just a habit that you've had for all this time of only speaking with your friends and people you're comfortable with, and you start to identify as, I'm just not good at it, or I'm just too shy. But it's just a skill that you haven't developed yet. um and I think that on top of that, to realize that there isn't any separation between that part of you in your life and then your professional side of it. It's like you said, the difference between networking and just making friends is just the intention that you have before you speak with
Mhm.
that person. You know, that's really the only difference. And so if you're approaching someone at like a networking event, right? Then you can feel that that
Mhm.
pressure is different just based on the name of
Yeah.
the event, right? But if you just kind of frame it as, no, I'm just here to work on speaking to people, to meet people, you know, it's those genuine connections that not only um can can start to build more confidence in yourself, because it's only through interacting with other people that you can learn more about yourself, but now that's also going to translate into your work too, and the work and the confidence that you're putting into your creative work. So I think that that's a really interesting kind of like perspective that you kind of have to see through interacting with students in your position and everything.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I also said that I mentioned English not my first language. So if you're really breaking it down, like how to
Mhm.
learn to how to communicate. When I went to Temple freshman year, I remember my friend, he was an architecture major, and he's like, "We're gonna go site visit. You want to come visit? Come along, and you can meet my friends." He's Taiwanese, and all his friends are not. Right. So I was like, yeah, of course. I just got here. I should probably go explore the city. And I went along with them for the entire day. At the end of the day, he walked up to me, just to me only, after all his friends left. He's like, just curious. Are you being rude on purpose? And I was like, whoa, what did I do? He's like, you don't talk to my friends. You didn't really talk to them, like communicate with them, like chat with them, like what's going on? Like, did anything do anything to you? Or like what is it? And he came across not like being rude or anything. He just was very curious. And this is what I said to him. I need to understand what people are talking about first before I can say anything back. So like learning that English in terms of the learning art of, I need to be able to go to the event, understanding what people are telling me about. I mean, again, I was not born and raised here. There's a lot of American pop culture references I still don't understand. But I think it's just then once I can understand and I can actually be brave enough to ask the questions like, hey, what you just said, I don't know what that is. Can you tell me again? I think a lot of people are very shy. I think, again, I don't think this is just for ESL people. It's people in general. Like, I don't want to look not knowing enough, right? I don't want to ask questions, but just ask questions like, I don't know what that is. Tell me more about it. And then to the point where I was walking down the street listening to a podcast, I was like cracking up. I was like, I can understand the jokes without like captions. My English is great now. So, like I went through that, my young adult life to completely learning a new language. I mean, I knew English back then, but not conversational. So I think, but then my way of doing, just like you said, continue to practice, and uh, don't be shy even in making mistakes. And one thing I encourage people to do, actually, I know it sounds really strange. I think now a lot of people fall back on communicating on social media, but that social media communication etiquette is very different. I still want people to go out and meet people. I always say go all out and strike a conversation with strangers, because everyone has a unique stories. And so by asking these questions like, oh, I mean, obviously you're not going to walk up to them and be like, hey, tell me about what you do. That was a little bit weird. But let's say you're sitting next to someone on the plane, on the train, something happened where you start making conversation, just go along with it. I absolutely love talking to strangers, just hearing their life stories. And sometimes because there's no baggage, right? It's not networking. You're not getting anything out of this entire conversation. You're just literally sitting stuck next to each other on the plane. You got nothing else to do but talk to each other. People would pour their hearts and souls about their life journeys and problems, and you could do the same, right? And I absolutely love those encounters, because I feel like that's how I get to learn more about storytelling and how people tell their stories and how they interact with other people. And yeah, I highly recommend doing that. But I actually curious, Jeffrey, do you have something? Because you're the one who brought a question about
Yeah.
confidence. Did you go
Yes,
through that journey as well?
I did, absolutely did. So I wasn't born in the United States
Ooh,
either. I was born in Kenya,
okay.
and I moved to Georgia in 2000 when I was 7 years old. And I remember first I was frustrated because I was like in this new place, and I'm still learning English, so I'm not super confident in it. And just going through school, like struggling with learning from school, learning from teachers because I wasn't really understanding things. And then um, I started playing basketball a little bit more, and that's when I had to be had to communicate more. When I was playing soccer and sports and stuff like that. Um, and then I found graphic design, which is what I landed doing. Which I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, maybe I picked that because it's a way of communication that I understand. Uh, and now that I've started to think about that more, I've kind of realized like I want to learn how to be a better speaker as well, because I think I've used graphic design to communicate in ways that I'm like curious to actually do with my voice. So yeah, that's been my journey with communication and confidence, and still learning, but it's been exciting.
But then see, basketball is great though. It's like a
Yeah.
teamwork. You're actually already communicating without language.
Hmm.
You're like literally eye contact and like doing all the signals. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I used to do that when I was little. So
We do some of that sometimes.
that's what people do, right? And
Yeah.
playing basketball. But I think that's also great. Is that's a really great advice in terms of how to learn how to communicate without language, because I think that's what a lot of filmmaking and stories are, right? You're not really telling people what to think and what to feel. So I know I appreciate you sharing that. I should get back to basketball. I don't know.
Basketball.
So
No, we
Skateboarding, isn't that what we talked about when we were when we were on that panel? Is
oh
your
yeah,
skateboarding
yeah,
I'm
talk
still
about
doing it, but that's such a
adventure?
lonely sport. I mean, it's all fighting yourself. So I started skateboarding a couple years, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe 2 year, a year and a half ago. I just thought it's cool, looks cool. It's like I'm just gonna get from my apartment to the subway. And that's all I wanted to do. And of course, that's not the reality. Once you start learning, everyone start teaching all the street styles and all the, all the
Mhm.
stuff. And they're like, you need to do that so you don't fall in and injure yourself. But I think that is a communication with yourself, which is actually pretty healthy.
Mhm.
Um, I started doing it just because my life was so stressful that I was started this new job at SVA. Also started my new role with WIA, where I was running multiple programs at the time. And I would wake up 6 o'clock in the morning during pandemic, sit on my desk till midnight, literally every single day, because I got to figure out how to run a department and doing all the programming. But then I pick up skateboarding just because I can force myself to go out. Not only that, the only thing I could think about while I'm skating is not to die. Or injure myself. So I feel like that for me is still very um I'm setting milestones every time I go skating. I'm not really good. I'm doing stuff like little kids could do like within 2 weeks. I'm still like struggling. But I feel like that's for me. I want to continue to do it, continue to kind of challenge myself that, okay, I know if I haven't been back for a couple weeks, if I go back, I'm going to start from scratch and how far I could go. So it's like a journey that, or like a milestone I'm setting for myself. But I
Mhm.
think everyone should have something that's not screen based. Any activity, I think that will be helpful just for our health in general.
Yeah, I have a bet with my brother, my little brother. He just turned 19. I
Mm.
bet him $1,000 that I would learn how to dunk before he could. So now, now it's on. Neither of us have $1,000, so I don't know why we both decided to do that. But I think after, oh, Jamil's gone.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
like, I gotta go practice dunking now.
you're back. Okay, cool. um, but yeah, just trying to set challenges like that for myself realistically
Yeah.
has been super helpful, because I think just working, and obviously we have all these tasks that we have to try and hit. I forgot that I can use that new skill that I've learned of set an actual goal for something that's not has nothing to do with being on a computer. It can
Yeah.
really benefit you. So that's been my goal. I want to learn how to dunk and not
Yeah.
pay my brother
Wait a
$1,000.
minute, can you learn how to dunk though?
No, okay. So what I'm talking about? So I'm 6'4", right?
Okay.
But I can get up there. But I want to do something
Yeah,
nice.
okay.
Like,
You want to style on them.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like there's like moves you can do like before you do that. Is that okay?
exactly. Yeah, I want to dance in the air. I don't want to just get up there.
Yeah, see,
Got it. Got
I
it.
feel like you can practice getting outside of your comfort zone with the little things, right? It's like you don't need to feel like you need to even if like getting up early in the morning was is something that you like would like to do, but you just don't do it. It's like, okay, well let me practice getting outside of my comfort zone by just, I don't know, making the shower a little bit colder. Every night, like stuff like that. Like you just be creative, but like slowly you can be like, oh, I did that. Like I didn't want to do it, but I put myself outside a little bit, and like slowly and slowly you can just build that confidence in yourself
Mhm.
about like just little things, getting outside of your comfort zone. And yeah, I love what you said about like how you took up skateboarding, because when you did it, it like required your full attention, and it was almost like therapeutic in that way, because Jeff and I had a conversation recently about how like we were so action oriented as a society. We feel like things aren't going to get done unless we're sitting down in
Mhm.
front of the desk and doing them, or writing them out or typing them out. But the fact of the matter is, you can really make a lot of progress, not only on yourself and in your self-confidence, and in the way that you communicate, all these things that we're talking about, through taking a step back and, like you said, picking up something new, like that, taking your mind off of things, giving yourself the time to take a walk and just kind of veg out,
Mhm.
right, without feeling like, oh man, I'm not getting anything done. Right? It's like you really are, like, by kind of pursuing things that interest you, that may not even necessarily be directly tied to, furthering your career. You're still
Mhm.
you're still flexing that muscle, and if you don't, then you'll really lose it. And especially as artists, you can't you can't lose that part of you, because then you can start to really get off balance and off and out of whack, and things start to become like confusing, almost like, oh, what am I doing? So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, so when I started skating, I actually have a really good friend of mine. She's a little bit older than me. She picked it up when she was like 40 years old. So she's like a little bit older. She had two kids, and but she's doing like all the crazy moves. So she's I call her the principal of skating for me, because she's the one really nurturing, not teach me too harshly. She's just like, you have your own pace. We're gonna do whatever you decide to do. And we will always kind of make up time to go skating together, kind of like you, Jeffrey, you and your brother. And I think whatever you set your mind for, I do absolutely agree with you, Jamel, about anything we do, it comprises like who we are as a human being. It could be an artist, it could be a writer, it could be anything, it could just be a carpenter, right? But I think having people around you to support, I think that's absolutely important. I don't think I will go skating on my own, because I feel like if I die, I want people to call an ambulance. But I think, but Jeffrey, you have your brother.
Mhm.
I'm sure Jamel, you two talk to each other. Sounds like constantly encouraging each other. I think that's so helpful, because we, unfortunately, as much as we are surrounded by so much information and so much content, I think it makes us feel more lonely sometimes because you feel like it's you versus the world, right? If you're not in it, you're not in it. You're like, I'm rejected. But that's why I feel like having that support system around you could absolutely help. So the other day, this is my crazy idea. I was like, I know I've been traveling around, but outside in New York and or United States, I went to a friend of mine like, um, can we go hiking? And they're like, what, why, what? And I was like, I just want to be outside. I don't want to be, I want to, because when I'm here, I just go to work, come back. I say, I want to be out in the nature where I don't see buildings. And these two friends just like, sure, let's go. And it was so helpful in the way just to kind of recharging, but at the same time, I know I'm not alone. I'm there with someone having a great conversation. We talk about cats for the most part, but so it's nothing career related. We talk about like food we want to eat. It's really helpful, and I think healthy in some way that we as individual finding that support system who can be there during your difficult time, can be there during the happiest time to cheer for you, and also can be there to challenge you too. I would not want my friend to challenge me on skateboarding because I'll definitely fail. But she does do that gently in the way to help me out. So I do want to say, as much as continue to practice, I think that's important, but having that support system, it's really helpful. But if I can add one more thing. So I just got back from Philly from another talk. And one thing so I was one of the panelists, but they didn't have a moderator. So obviously I volunteered. So I was like a panelist and moderator at the exact same time. And something was very interesting that came up. So one of the questions they wanted us to address is like work-life balance. So there's three panelists, right? Me and two other people went down the roll. The first person to talk about there's no work-life balance, and the second person says the exact same thing. So by the time it got to me, I was like, the answer is there's no work-life balance for the three of us. But the reason I said that is this so much just sounds like the joke. There's something we all are consciously aware and are working on. But I also realize I want to present this reality is people when people see us on screen together or they see people on stage, they're like, oh my God, they got their lives figured out. They know exactly what they're doing. They have all the answers to all the questions. The reality is not really. That's not true. I think we're every stage of our life we're in, we're we're be facing a different sets of problems and issues and challenges that we're constantly trying to figure it out. And I think that's what it's just something interesting I observe because students like, oh my God, how do you do that? And how did you solve this problem, being Asian American, how do you deal with difficult situation? I'm like, you know what, I'm still dealing with it. I don't have the answer, but I know how I am dealing with it. I'm sharing with you from my perspective. Doesn't mean that's the right way to do it or the only way, but also we're still trying to figure it out as much as you are trying to figure out. We're in it together. So do you feel that same way? Sometimes people will put you on that pedestal and like, you
Yeah.
gotta figure it out, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like my brother for sure. I try and tell him that constantly that um, because I used to think that when I became an adult, when I was, 21, I guess I would know everything about real estate, the houses, the market, investing. I'm like, every single day I wake up, there's something new I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
learning about. So, um, but I definitely do. I did feel that pressure when I was like, I need to know what I'm supposed to be knowing all the time. So I'm lucky that, I have a partner who does it, who also feels the same way, that we're still figuring out so much. Um, so whenever I talk to my brother, I tell him that like adults are lying. We don't know what we're doing. we're just, we're just guessing. So calm down.
Yeah, I think what's been cool for me is like, especially over the past, oh man, what's it been? Like 5 months or so since we started doing this podcast, is just through the conversation, you realize how much you've been kind of processing and thinking about. And then when you talk about it, it's almost like you have this conversation back and forth. You're like, oh man, I kind of like I do think I kind of got it figured out, and I'm like, or from the standpoint of like I'm thinking about it, but then you go back, we do this podcast once a week, and then the week in between, I'm just like, dang, we just talked about this, but and yet and yet it's like I didn't even. It's like I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. I'm still like I just talked about. Okay, it takes this to like relax yourself, and then 2 days later, I'll find myself like stressed out about the thing I was just talking about. So I think, like you said, having someone to talk to about it, can almost hold you accountable to yourself. Like from the standpoint of you're talking about these things, you're really thinking about these things, and then as they show up again in your life, it's like, okay, let me make the determination now to like to straighten this out a little bit, and then you just do a little bit at a time. Like, okay, I've been a little bit bad about this or a little bit lax about this. Let me try and tighten this up. And then, slowly but surely you start to kind of like polish the way
Yeah.
you are. And I think that's kind of like just different perspectives. You got the students who look at someone who's 30 like they're ancient, you know.
Right.
And then now I'm just like, oh, I'm looking at, I'm like, I still don't know anything. Like,
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure it out. And then that's the beauty of it, right? If
Yeah.
we ever get to the point we know everything, we know exactly what we do and how the world functions, and there's no secrets. And then I think that's the fun of it. There's a lot of mysteries and a lot of challenges. And I do think this is actually a good leading point to like troubleshooting. I think a lot of people tend to fall back in their comfort zone, like this is the way I've been doing it, and that that's the only way. Or when they're presented a question, I mean, we're so easy to just like Google it right now, right? So like finding that answer so quickly. But I think it's really the process of troubleshooting is really important. Sorry, I'm gonna drop a really big bomb. The AI tool sets.
Yeah.
um, I mean, I know it's a topic that we can talk about it for like 5 different episodes. But I think the tool sets, it's about uh, fast tracking, right? You get from point A to point C so quickly that the B is invisible, right? But I think that's where we are society. We want everything so fast to the point you neglect the process. And I think now as an educator, what I really want a student to focus on is the society. Unfortunately, we still care so much about who wins the races, who gets the final results, what's the end product going to look like, right? Unfortunately, I don't think that society, that aspect would change. But us as a human being, as a creator, or just human in general, is looking at the process equally important to the end results. So I'm, having that process in the middle documented, knowing what to do, knowing what the problems are, how to troubleshoot. Like Jamel, like in talking about starting a podcast, you run into all these issues and how do you troubleshoot. I'm sure finding the platform, all of that is part of the process to make it the way you want it to be. And I oftentimes, unfortunately, again, it's not just students. Everyone is like, I just want to write this social media caption. Maybe I'll just go to Chat GPT and like write that's for me. Yes, you could do that. The tools are out there, but how are you using it responsibly? Still maintain your own voice and also learning the process of troubleshooting. I think that's very important, just so we don't just skip ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my AI bomb.
No, I'd like to add to that for sure. I shared this article with Jamil a few weeks ago about this artist, and he was kind of he was trying to debate that, as artists, there obviously we have these AI tools, but the thing that people have always liked to see in other human beings is when we mess up, or um, when we fall and we get back up. So the artists use like Messi, for example, like a soccer player. He's kind of unpredictable the way he moves, and obviously soccer is a game of, either you win or you lose, and people like to see that. So
Yep.
that's very encouraging for artists, I think, as we move forward. And there's always going to be a new tool that makes the work faster. But I think it's important to remember that we've always just liked the human part of everything.
Mhm.
So it just keeps me, I don't know, super. My stepdad always tells me, he's like, "Oh, the AI is coming to get your jobs." I'm like, I don't think so. I don't.
I,
I
I
don't think
think
so.
we're
Not
in a
yet.
really unique situation where like artists, we're also like we're the artists and we're creating it, but we're also the consumers too. And it's like, what do I want to see? You know, I want to see something that's got emotion tied to it. I want to know that whoever wrote this, like, you know, it's like it's not necessarily the product or the words that I'm reading. It's like sometimes when you know that the words that you're reading off of a page, like you can imagine the writer sitting down in like a tough situation or whatever it was that they were going through. Like if you can kind of like put yourself there, that's what we look for in storytelling, like you said, or like filmmaking. It's like
Mhm.
it's that it's being able to transport yourself to the emotion that was behind it, you know. And I think that the biggest thing that's come out of the AI boom has certainly been um, like almost kind of snapping us out of that trance of like really remembering. Like, no, that's like, you know, that is what I want to look at. Like, I don't want to look at anything else. I want to look at that kind of stuff, you know. So yeah, like you said, the AI bomb. We could go off on a tangent for another 40,
No, sorry.
40 episodes on that, but. I,
Yeah, I mean AI. It's also unfortunately, Jeffrey. I think your stepdad is right. AI
Mhm.
has been replacing jobs already, and that's just a reality. I think for us to even have that debate, it's long gone. But I think, to be honest, like I actually been sharing those thoughts with so many people every time I get into the AI conversation. Is um, I'm actually not afraid of us being creators using that tools correctly because we know how our unique voices and how we can edit it, make it our own. If you're exploring it, or it while understanding the ethical issues involved, right? So that's I feel like I'm not worried about it because I think people are very vocal about their opinions, and there's still a long way to go for the tools to be right, right? Socially, economically, responsibly, right? However, my biggest fear is the general public. The general public that doesn't care about what tools are being used. And they, so for example, there's so many AI tools. You can upload your video, they'll do the whole lip sync for you. And for us, it was like, well, you're replacing all the jobs. Great, that's on the creative side of the question, right? To be worried about. General public, they just want to use it, put it on social media. Look what I did, right? So, and I think that's my fear is Jamil, you actually said a really good point earlier that we're not only creative, we're also consumers. We have double roles, and I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about general public. They're only consumers. Once they are so used to certain style generated by AI, and that's the only style they want or they prefer, they will shift entire industries to creating content more like that.
Mm.
And that's where my work goes is really because can general public tell the difference between an AI gen image versus a Photoshop that we created? I don't, probably not. Do they care? Probably not. Do they care about the ethical issues involved? Hopefully yes, but probably not, right? So what I'm worried about is the general public of wanting more content to be like that. So for example, um, vertical video did not exist until this whole thing came out. Now everything's vertical. Now every shooting your videos video in vertical. Game designs are all in vertical, right? So it's shifting to how the content's created because the general public are consuming certain way, and that's where my worry is. I
yeah,
don't have an answer for it. I'm so scared because I feel like
Mm.
hopefully not. I do think you all said a good point about that personal human touch of emotions involved that AI does not have at the moment. And we as a consumer still have to be responsible learning how to edit. But on the other side, how do we make sure everyone is aware of the same issue that we're encountering as well as care about it? Because if you don't, they don't care.
I think
Then
that
there's
I think I don't know. I've always been hopeful in that. I think that we'll kind of surprise ourselves because I think like the other thing the other thing that you can kind of compare it to is like the slow rise of like AR and VR. And the
Mhm,
way I've always looked at that is like personally, it's not for me from the standpoint of like I prefer the real thing. Like, right? Like that's my
mhm,
preference. I don't want to have something on my head even if 10, 15, 20 years later, it's as simple as like a contact lens, right? Like some Black Mirror stuff where you've
mhm,
got this virtual reality thing that takes you away from actual reality. I've always felt um like people can do that on their own and it doesn't impact me.
mhm,
Like that's kind of how I felt about that technology. So when I think of what you said about how like the consumers who want to who are preferring AI created things and then gradually that's what we see more and more of to cater towards them. Um it's the same thing in that like it doesn't impact what I like. I can still choose to watch something different, but I think the only thing like with that mindset, the only thing that stays scary about it is livelihoods, right? Because people have built
mhm.
up careers and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's like, okay, well, that's great and all. Sure, I can just choose to watch something else, but then what am I, how am I going to make a living? Um, and I think that that's where the apprehension comes from, particularly from people who've been in the industry for a while already and have built livings and everything like that. But at the same time, it's kind of like what I mentioned. I feel like I'm in the middle of that, where it's like I've been in the industry for a while, but I've also um, not been in the industry for nearly as long as so many other people, and so
Mhm,
it's kind of like this hunkering down of like what do I really kind of uh, want for myself as far as being able to like be satisfied with the work that I'm doing while still
mhm,
being able to make a livelihood. And like you said, we don't have the answers for that yet as far as making a
mhm,
living goes, but I do think that just from the human side of things, if you can just kind of really sit down, have a conversation with
mhm.
yourself, with friends like this, and really figure out what it
Yeah.
is that like because the reason we want anything, the comfortable livelihood career, is because we think we'll be satisfied and happy and comfortable with it.
Mhm,
So it's like, what are the things um, about that I'm looking for, and how can I
mhm.
position myself to be able to always have that, regardless of what's happening with the AI, conversation and everything. So that's always been my take. Again, I don't have, I don't want to act like I have answers for those questions, but that's kind of been like my thought process on them.
But I think also how pandemic fast tracked so many things, and having online presence, and this is why I feel like we are having these Zoom meetings, and I can hop on a call when we're teaching online, all of that. The technology allowed us to do that, kind of like the tool sets, right? But then that's why I want to always encourage everyone, including myself, go outside and meet
Touch
people. Like
grass.
Ramel, you're saying, having a conversation, like touch the grass, yeah, go dunk something, do the moves, and because I think you're absolutely right in terms of the tools are the tools, right? But you still need that human connections, and I'm so afraid people are, especially there, people like playing games all day long or talking to people online. And my friend was telling me the story. She has like a 5-year old. They went out for a play date. All the kids brought their iPads. to the play day. And once they put the iPads away, all the kids just sit there and just like, I don't know what to do.
Wow.
But again, that's the generation now, right? They're so used to that technology, but then other people around having a discussion, having a conversation, acknowledging this is where we are right now, but also making sure that the human connections are there. Take the iPads away, get the kids, like throw them to the playground, right? There are definitely places they can have fun, run around and scream, and and I still think that's so important. And I think I'm not being negative about anything. I'm that's my own personal fear, but I'm still feel like hopeful that the human touch, human emotions, and that's what drives us to move forward. Without it, there's nothing. So let's go out, have coffee. Let's do that and talk to strangers.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
a good way to. I think after speaking about AI, the one thing I'm thinking about right now is that question.
Our lighthearted
Would we?
question of the day.
Oh,
I do have one thing though before we jump into that, to a little bit of a lighthearted vibe, to maybe
yes.
wrap up the pod. You mentioned a couple times you went to school in Philly. I grew up right across the bridge in Cherry Hill, so
Oh, nice.
I'm curious to know how you thought about Philly. I always say, my mom was pregnant with me while she was getting her master's at Temple, so I always say I technically graduated from Temple as well. So,
You're a baby owl.
so curious to know, just like, I don't know. I feel like this is just me being biased on the show. People don't talk about Philly enough. We're so New York, New York,
Hmm.
New York, New York. We're right down the turnpike.
I can say I went through the same process of like when I live in Philly. I was like, oh, I just want to go to New York, right? I was born and raised in Taipei, which is kind of like New York, so very fast paced and public transportation's everywhere. There are people everywhere. I would say my first impression of Philly was the Philly accent was so thick. So me was not born and raised here. I remember going to someone's office asking a question. They said something. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And they said it again. I'm like, can you say it
Say
again?
it in
They said
English.
it one more time. Yeah. I was like, I don't. I'm so sorry. I thought I speak English, but I don't. I was like, it's just like freaking out. Uh, I don't want to embarrass anyone, especially myself. It was just I feel the accent was so thick. Um, but then I think so I lived there for 4 years for college, and I would say Philly, I didn't appreciate it until I moved away, to be honest. Because again, I just want to come to New York, but then Philly, I actually was very fortunately got invited to go back to Philly twice the last month for two different events. And one day, my friend, who also went to Philly for college, and she flew down from Boston. So we walked around. I walked at the end of the day 36,000 steps.
Wow.
It was like a 13 to 14 miles of just walking
Mhm.
because Philly is really walkable. Very people are generally really nice, and what I love the most is the city. The vibe is calm and has history. Like New York, unfortunately, they just keep tearing stuff down, like gentrifying neighborhoods. Philly, it's not. It's still preserving that history in stories and people that I feel like it's not being neglected. And food was amazing. Public transportation was great. I mean, I would say Philly has gone through a rough patches before. I'm sure it still is in terms of safety. I just feel like, but that's everywhere. I was so moved when I actually got the chance to go back to Philly this time. I was like, "This is my home." Like, I know that building. I know that building, and I do think, unfortunately, the industry there is not as big. Again, they're still focused on LA, New York, Atlanta. But I'm hopeful. I don't know. Should we do something in Philly, Jamel? Is that what you're proposing?
But like I said, my biased Philly plug, just to get some
Yeah.
conversation about my home city. I always
No,
say
Hey,
I love.
I always say Philly is like, it's actually like harder to drive in
Really?
Philadelphia. I think it's like I think if you can drive in Philadelphia, you can drive in New York City. It's like a cakewalk.
Why?
In my,
Why? Why
because
would you say that?
it's like you said with the how they kind of have that heritage. They haven't really torn anything down. The streets are all so much more
Mm,
um
yeah,
compact. A lot of them still have like
that's true.
cobblestones and and everything going
That's true.
on. But then the last thing I also love about Philly is like just that area in general is very it's like very blue collar, like
Mm,
in New York City you have like that balance of course to like to keep the city running, but like there isn't a bunch of like glitz and glamour from the standpoint of like um like people with agendas, if that makes sense, where they're trying to like um progress. And like if you're in Philly, it's like because you want to be there, and it's because you're just a regular person working and enjoying stuff. So I
yeah.
don't know, like I said, that's just my biased mention
Yeah.
of Philadelphia because you said you stayed there.
But I think you're right because I also feel like there's a huge difference between East Coast and West Coast. So I feel like Philly has that East Coast vibe of people are really kind, but not necessarily nice.
Mm.
But it's less pace, not as fast as New York. So you actually get to really connect with people. Like New York, unless you fall down, then people will come help. But unless you fall down, people are not going to talk to you. But Philly, it's I don't know, it's more people. I don't know. I like it. Although I have to say, this time when I went back, I forgot how short the trip was on the train because I'm always flying somewhere, so I'm really used to like, all right, this is the last stop. Everyone leaves together. Don't do this. What I did, I almost missed my stop. Don't wear noise cancellation headphones on the train. I put it on. I kind of like took a short nap, and then all of a sudden I heard this is the last call for Philadelphia, and I got up and like dropped my laptop. And the guy next to me like picked it up. And I was like, "Is it Philadelphia?" He's like, "Yeah, this is your laptop." I was like, "Hold on to it. Let me get my bag." I grabbed my bag and everything. Grabbed the laptop. Thank you, and I ran out. So make sure at least when I came back, I was like, I'm gonna set alarm just so I remember. It's so short. Everyone, if we're all from East Coast, go to Philly. I love this Philly plug. I am all Philly.
Yeah,
Thank
I like Philly too. I
you.
was I was there for a little bit. Went to go visit some friends, and the first thing I noticed were all the cars were parked on the road, but it was like in the median or something like that. And I was like, that no one's gonna like stop them. And then people were like, they don't do that in Philly. They don't care. So I was like, I like this place.
Philly's fun. We should do field trips there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are great museums and great food, great people. I went to Barnes Foundation. Did you watch that documentary called Artist the Steel? Go watch it. That's my homework for you. It's a really cool one and you can actually see the museum.
What's it called again?
Barnes Foundation.
Barnes Foundation.
Okay.
Check it
Okay.
out.
Are you guys ready for our big debate topic? We can wrap this up with
Yeah.
some. Okay. So,
Yeah.
as you guys know, if you've been listening for the last couple episodes, we've been trying to we get into such deep conversations, and we just wrap them up. We dive right into them. We wrap them up, and we just want to have a little bit of fun. So we have a debate topic today. We want to get your thoughts, Shung, on if you think that a cheesecake is a cake or a pie, because I'm kind of torn.
Mm.
I'm torn but leaning one way.
I think I
I feel like okay, go ahead. Go ahead. No.
okay. I think it's a pie. I think that I think that cheesecake is a pie, like genuinely, because for one reason, because it has a crust. Like
Yeah.
the it's got a crust. I've never heard of a cake with a crust, unless
Wait, is it a crust all the way to the bottom or just on the side?
I feel
It's
like
on the
I've had
bottom. Or
both.
Huh.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah, but how would you hold it? How would it stay? Because it's like flimsy kind of. It needs like a crust to
Ah,
are we changing your
because I was
mind?
No, 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 no.
Because
I
in my
think
head, I was like, it's I can see in the middle because the crust on the side, but
yeah,
I don't remember because I feel like there are a lot of cheesecake that I have. They're not with the bottom though.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think
Oh,
that too.
because
Now
you
that I'm
probably
thinking
already
about it.
finished. Mm,
Hmm. So it depends on how it's made, right?
Yeah,
that's
I
the
actually
thing.
don't know how
So
cheesecake
so
is
maybe
made.
we are in agreement. If it's wrapper around, then it's a pie. But if just the side, then it's a cake.
I guess
Yeah.
so.
This debate was so
It's the
easy.
hybrid. So
No,
wait a minute. You don't bake cheesecake though, right?
I don't.
So that
But
no,
I
so I feel
have
like that's another knot. It's a pie. It's 100%.
no, 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 but I definitely have cheesecakes without the bottom. That sounds weird. This whole sentence sounds so weird.
No bottom cheesecake. Well, I also
Bottom
think of
cheese.
this though. Think of like key lime pie. Is like because
Yeah.
isn't it the same thing with cheesecake? I've never made cheesecake, but isn't it just like the filling and then you just kind of let it like rest or like set?
settle. Yeah,
You're not actually
Hold
like
on.
that's it.
baking it or anything.
Yeah, I think cheesecake is made from like Philadelphia cheese, right?
Cream cheese.
Plug, and then yeah, like you either add, I don't know, you make it thicker or you add more milk to it, but I think
Yeah,
that's it.
because
Like it's
Hold
not
on.
layered. See, this debatable was too obvious. There's no way. I feel bad if we had to argue for a cake because I'm like, there's nothing
yeah,
to
I don't
support
think yeah, now I'm thinking about
the
it.
opposite
I think it's a
argument.
pretty double okay,
No,
but here's the thing then.
no, I'm looking it up. I'm looking. Okay, so this is the this is why I'm researching photos of cheesecake right now. So you're right in terms of the classic cheesecakes actually has that graham cracker bottom, right?
Mm.
But this is where my mind goes because I'm Asian. Japanese cheesecake actually has no
Yep.
the crust on the bottom. That's why my head goes like it's a cake because that's the one I have normally.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
So it
wonder
depends.
yeah, I mean,
mhm.
I guess at some point like I guess what this boils down to is the fact that it's called what it's called. So why is it called a cheese it's called a cheesecake? Where did that come from? Now I need like a cheesecake history lesson.
I know cheesecake. But what else would you
Hmm.
cheese pie?
Cheese
Cheese pie.
yeah, that's I
I
don't know
think
if
it
it
was a
would be right if
marketer.
you
It must have been a marketer that was like, "Nah, that doesn't sound. No one is
the
buying."
marketing decision. Maybe
Key lime pie can be a pie. It's not key lime cake.
true.
Cute. Yeah, that doesn't sound. That's true.
Cherry pie, apple cake. Apple cake? That sounds weird.
Yeah,
Hmm.
is this purely just a marketing decision? To
Have
make
you looked it up and see what the internet says? I'm just
see
curious.
what
Is
Reddit. Yeah,
cheese
I'm sure this has been discussed already on Reddit.
Debated. People get hot on it. They're like, "What do you mean? It's this."
Oh, okay. So this is from seldonliving.com. Given cheesecake structure, ingredients, and then the way it's baked, cooked, and served, we are chiming in to say that cheesecake is a hybrid between cake and pie.
Okay. Okay, that's the
It's
easy way out. The easy way out.
guess you're not offending anyone. So
What?
actually, someone wrote this. Is another one. This is actually interesting. Hold on. Wait, hold on. I just need the quote. Where is the quote? Cheesecake is technically a tart.
Uh,
What?
wait. What's a I don't
A tart needed a
see
fruit,
now we're
but
getting into like because baking is like a whole like don't you need a degree in order to like legally bake? I'm joking.
Oh,
every
you mean
Like
as a chef?
I'm
yeah.
just in general, it's like a don't you need like a
I was gonna
science or
say,
like a physics degree or like
like people,
yeah,
like people need
it's
other
like
things.
baking is like you like if you have like just a little bit of extra sugar, it turns into a tart versus a they have all these
I mean, that's
techniques.
not baking though. Baking's like following instructions and rules and stuff. It is very scientific. But when you say, "Do you need a degree?" and I'm like, "Did my mom have a degree in
Yeah, I was
baking?"
gonna,
We've all been yeah. I'm not
we've been lying to
yeah, we
ourselves.
I watched the Great
But baking
British
actually,
Bake Off during the
Oh.
holidays, and I was like,
Oh,
man,
no.
this is because the host, his name is Paul Holiday, I believe. They'll
Mhm.
place all of their dishes, whatever the challenge is, whether it was make a cake or make this kind of tart or whatever, and they do
Yeah.
like a blind taste test where the judges are eating all the different ones and they don't know who made them. And I'm looking at every single one of them. I'm like, that looks delicious. That looks delicious. That looks delicious. That looks great. I would eat that. And they're eating each one and are just like, oh, it's missing it's a little too like crispy. Like the bottom is like not as crispy as I would like. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, that looked fine to me. I would have like, but I would have known. I don't think I've ever had a cheesecake that was like crispier than that. I don't know. So it's a whole
See,
science.
so it's a whole science, but that's the thing about actually. So I also pick up pottery like a year ago or
Oh,
something. And for me, pottery is really, I do wheels. So wheels are like baking. You need technique. It's all about structure, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know, you know me by now. I need structure. I need like I when I do things, it's more like logic, right? And my friend's like, you need to start doing hand building. So I'm in the studio and there are a lot of people in different levels of experience. This guy was sitting across from me. He's like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I was like painting little flower. I made this. I was painting little flowers on my cup. And he's like, oh my God, that would be like torture for me. And I looked at him, he was like building like a structure of like a clock tower, but hand building. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so we were finding the differences. We started challenging each other. It was like, you should try to do well. I'll try, hand building because I was telling him like I can't freestyle. I feel like that's my brain doesn't work. I need structure. I need give me rules and I'll figure it out. But it's something similar to baking is that you have to have follow all these steps and the amount. If you mess it up, it could be a cake, could be a tart, it could be a whole disaster, literally. But then I'm also trying to be. I feel like I'm learning in the process of letting things go. Like sometimes you don't need structure. Sometimes going with the flow would be just fine. It's really hard, but I'm trying. So I started hand building a little bit. I made like a sponge, like a dish soap, soap dish. Where you put the soap on. I just use it with my hand. I was like, I don't know, it's gonna look like crap. And it came out pretty good. I was like, oh, I walk up to the guy and I was like, "Look, I made this." And my thing's like this tiny, and he's big. He's like, "Good job!" And I was like, "Thank you. That's all I need to hear." He's like, "Now you can go make a clock." I'm like, "Nah, I'm gonna
no,
Nah.
to do this."
that's
But yeah,
cool.
that's
Sh-
you should go do pottery. It's fun.
It's on my list. I like, I don't know. I like, and this may sound weird, but like a couple days ago, honestly,
Is a weird cheesecake is a tart though? I think you're fine.
it was honest story. I was walking, and I was just looking at my hands, and I was like, man,
Wait, how are you walking and looking at your hands at the same time? Sorry.
it
Was like
gets
walking, looking
that's part
down.
of what I was looking down. I don't know. It wasn't like I was staring at him, but I just kind of like looked at him for whatever reason, and I just had the thought. I was like, man, I've had these hands for 30 years. Like how many things have I made with these, or like molded with these, or like clicked with these? And then I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, like I think of like a carpenter or someone who makes pottery, like uses their hands like that every day. I don't know. It was just like a little thought I had. I was like, that's amazing.
Did you go like this? Like, thank you for all the
Yeah,
hard work
exactly.
you've
I
been
was
doing.
like, thank you, hands. I appreciate you.
I like that random thoughts. Question for you too. If you
Hmm.
could choose any character to be your best friend, any characters, who would that be?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Character like from TV shows or
Could be anything. It could be a movie,
yeah.
a shows. It could be animated. It could be a
Hmm.
person.
That's a tough one.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a tough
I
question.
have one. Mine is uh X-Men 97 Logan
Whoa.
specifically.
Whoa. Okay. Why?
Um
Very
so
specific.
so
You
when
thought
I was
about it.
no, that's always been my character. So when I was a kid, our neighbor had an X-Men Wolverine toy, and we would just play with it by sharing, because that's how we had toys. Like we all just shared like a bike. We shared toys, and I remember this feeling of just wanting to to just take that toy from him so I could play with it all the time. So so I still think about that even as a 32-year-old man. I'm like, I still want that toy, that specific one from him.
I
So yeah,
think
that'd be
I
my.
like your I like your stories not about the character. It's like this character has like a personality I want to hang out with. No, it's because the
No,
neighbor had it and I really want
I wanted that toy.
I think I think mine would be Jimmy Neutron. You know Jimmy Neutron? No, he was a Nickelodeon show
it. Hmm.
from back in the day, and he was this essentially like a boy genius, and like he built like a rocket ship that could like fly around. Like he just built, remember Jimmy Neutron, right, Jeff? As
Yeah,
a
he had a huge
Yeah,
head.
he had
His
like
head,
he had
most of
hair
his
that was
body
like
was head,
shaped like really
like an
funny.
ice cream.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a
exactly like an
soft
ice
serve.
cream. And he was just this boy genius. And I just think like, he in the show he had best friends. He had Sheen and Carl.
Yeah.
And I just remember just like, yo, if I was his best friend, I would have so much fun. Like they go on the funnest like
Mm,
adventures.
Yeah.
He just makes like I just go over to Jimmy's house all the time.
that sounds fun.
Good
Uh,
question. What about you?
Mine, I don't know if you know. Apparently, this cartoon is banned in the United States. I found that out. Doraemon.
Mm,
You know that
yeah,
the
yeah.
robot cat, like round head, round body,
Mhm.
and he can pull up
Oh,
edges from his pockets.
Mhm.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that
That's a
was the.
oh,
I, I'm gonna date myself. When I started watching cartoon, I was watching on VHS. So my mom would take me to a big rental place, and I'll watch. I think there's only 2 episodes on one VHS. I'll just like keep repeating it and watching it over and over again. Because for me, it was like, I want a cat. It says so much about us. I was like, I want a cat. Could help me out with all the problems I have. And he could just pull out like anything from his pockets. Like if you want to travel the world, he will give you a door. It literally opened the door and you go to the other side. That's like where you want
oh,
to go. And there's also one gadget. It's like I wanted it so bad when I was in school. It's called memory bread.
hmm.
So this is part of the reason why it's banned in the United States is because the main character, the little boy, he's so bad at school, like or just not good at anything. So the cat is the one like solving all his problems. So this kid is really bad in school. So he's like, I have a test tomorrow. I can memorize anything. So the cat is like, all right, here's a memory bread. So you just paste it on the book and print it on the bread and you eat it and you memorize everything.
Oh.
Oh,
So in some way, they don't want to teach the kids like, you skip all the
Yeah.
steps, you can, be in school by learning, eating this bread. But yeah, I really wanted that cat so bad. But then this cat also has a time machine. Actually, this cat is from the future, from 20th century
hmm.
or 21st century, and traveled to that time period and helping this kid. And so he has his time machine is in the drawer. When I was in third grade, one kid in my class, he claimed he had the time machine at his house. Somehow we all believed in him and we're like, can we go hang out? He's like, no, it's under repair. He apparently crashed in my house and we're trying to fix it. For the whole actually fourth grade, I was like under an impression this guy for sure had a time machine at his house. I completely forgot about it. And I got reconnected with this guy recently, but I have yet to have the courage to ask him, why'd you lie to us?
Yeah. Or
Although it was a highlight for a whole year for us. We all became so good friends with him. Like, can we go hang out, please?
I would have don't worry, I would have believed him too. 100%.
Right?
Like,
But I like how our stories are so different, Jeffrey, because your neighbor.
My neighbor. I still think about it. When I went to my grandma's. I was like, I wonder if he's still there. Like that's how much I thought about it. I was like, but
But do you
Either way.
consider yourself, you and the neighbor good friends or more like rivals?
No, we were friends. I think it was like, oh, everyone lives in this neighborhood, so we all talk to each other.
Okay.
He just had it,
Every
and
everyone you
I
know
was
in
like,
grade school is your friend. If I know you, you're my friend.
yeah,
That's true. See, networking
Mhm.
is so not an issue when you're in grade school.
to bring it back. I love it.
Full cycle. I love it. This is amazing.
Hsiang, thank you so much for coming on. This has been
Of
great. I
course.
love this conversation.
Thank you
Yeah,
for having me. Sorry, I went like so many different directions in
No.
one podcast. But thank you. Now I know a lot about you two and also cheesecake. So thank you for enlightening me about all this knowledge that I never had before.
Mhm. Anything,
yes.
anything else you want to mention? Anything you got going on or
Plugs.
plugs?
If people want to reach out to you, or you
Plugs,
got,
yes.
yeah,
There's so many plugs I could do, but I think one thing I would say, actually, back to what Jeffrey you're talking about, confidence. A huge struggle that I have for years is I run the scholarship program for WIA, and I don't have enough people applying for it. I mean, not enough. It just every year I raise more money or software, hardware, whatever that is, people are not applying. So it's again, I think it is a confidence issues, and sometimes I'll run into students like, "How come you're not applying?" They're like, "Well, my work is not good enough." So if I can plug anything, is there are a lot of resources out there for any challenges you might have. There's a lot of organizations out there. And I would say don't be shy about reaching out and don't be shy about presenting yourself to the world because you have to. Like, that's how we meet people, right? And also, please apply for my scholarship program.
100%.
It's money and software and hardware and mentoring programs, So if I can plug that, that will be the one. So thank you for letting me share this.
no, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Send us the link and we'll include it in the show notes too for anyone interested.
I'll do that. Thank you. Well, let's go out and touch some grass.
Yeah.
It's really nice today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Go talk to strangers.
I'm gonna go.
I love it. That's a new one. I'm going to start doing more. Usually it's just touching grass, but I'm like, okay, I need to actually talk to somebody.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
talk to somebody.
One last homework, since we're talking about your best friend as a character or your character as your best friend, we should also think about a dark secret that this character has and no one else knew but you. Ha! We don't have to share it right now. Just think about it.
I'm gonna think about it. James Isaac Neutron. I have to go back and watch his material.
You're like, you did that because there's some secret you never share. That would be fun. Exercise for storytelling.
We'll think about it.
I'll say that.
No, thank you, Hsiang. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a good one. Happy animation, everyone. Bye.
Congratulations.
Peace.